Today we're going to be talking about how to apply and succeed in Y Combinator. I'm a solo female founder, which is stereotypically known as being rare in Y Combinator. I actually believe I once saw a tweet that I think there are only like 6 or 7 solo female founders ever in the history of Y Combinator. So my name is Catherine. I'm the founder of Ansha Health. We help pregnant parents freeze stem cells from their umbilical cords and placenta, and I was in the Y Combinator W22 batch. I walked out of the batch having raised $4.5 million from investors like, of course, Y Combinator, 776, which is Alexis Ohanian's fund, the CEO of Roe, Balaji, who used to be the CTO of Coinbase, but also actually had a genetic testing company for babies, and then other funds like Krista Galley Ventures, Harvest Ventures, etc. So what makes a strong Y Combinator application? Well, I would highly suggest reading Paul Graham's essay. The essay is called Writing Briefly, and basically the premise of the essay is that you should be really concise and that good writers avoid jargon and complexity. You need to approach their application with that same lens. Basically, I believe that Paul Graham employed this framework when he was building YC, and it continued even to now when he's no longer directly involved in YC. A lot of people use frameworks like blank for blank, Uber for India, DoorDash for whatever. If you can't explain your company and what you do effectively, then how will you be able to explain it to a customer, and how will they know what they are purchasing? Why would they decide to purchase if they don't feel clear about their motives? So you need to be clear about what you're selling. And part of that is having a really, really clear pitch and a clear vision for the future that you are building with your company. Another common question that I get is traction necessary? It is not. A lot of Y Combinator companies, I wouldn't say a majority because I don't know that for a fact, but I believe a majority of companies walk into YC without any traction. So it's not necessary, but it definitely helps. And if you have it, then of course that's just more evidence that what you want to do will work. I also get asked a lot if you need a co-founder. You do not need a co-founder, but it definitely may help if you have a good one. So I'm a solo founder. It never really occurred to me to get a co-founder because I had previously started a consultancy called Bridge Strategy alone, and I figured I can just do the solo thing alone again. I wasn't really exposed to rhetoric around being a solo founder being negative. So for that reason, I never searched for a co-founder, but now looking back, I definitely see the benefits of having a co-founder, because usually people in the early stages are either trying to find a co-founder and don't have one or don't want one, but I would say the former is probably more common. So on Lenny's podcast, which is a podcast mostly about product management, but he's kind of since expanded, he interviewed Jessica Livingston, who is one of the OG co-founders of YC, and she's married to Paul Graham to this day. And she said on Lenny's podcast that
and so many startups died or had near-death experiences because the co-founders didn't get along or broke up. It just happens all the time. And so that's why I think during interviews, I was desperately trying to search for any clues that the co-founders didn't get along, or if they like blatantly contradicted each other. But you could also tell if they were answering, finishing each other's sentences. Like I love co-founders that have a history together. Either they went to school together, they went to college together, worked together, maybe they're siblings. Because when you have a long-term relationship, you trust each other and you know each other's weaknesses, and you're usually on the same page, with your aspirations and everything. It's really scary when 2 founders get together just to start the startup.
Basically, there's like a sort of line of logic here if you're currently searching for a co-founder. Bad co-founder is less than no co-founder, which is less than good co-founder. So if you're currently looking for a co-founder, it's basically like dating. You want to make sure that you trust them, you have similar values, you see the world similarly, you work together. I would suggest doing a practice mini project together so you can get a sense of how you work. And even things like how you live together, like you'd be surprised whenever I've taken trips with my team to conferences or whatever it is, like if I can cohabitate with them well, I think it makes things way better. Another common question that I get is when it comes to the interview. So those are basically the stages: application, interview, and then you get into YC, and they will call you if you get in. When it comes to preparing for the interview, you want to be able to be prepared for the format of the interview because it's very fast. They do it in under 10 minutes typically. And so I typically tell people to also do practice interviews with people if you're going to be interviewing. You want to hit up people that have been in YC before. Yeah, you can get accustomed to sort of the rapid fire questioning. You might also have a partner that interrupts you during the interview, and you want to make sure that you're prepared for that and that you're not caught off guard by that happening. And they have a list of questions on their YC website that they ask during an interview, so you definitely want to have answers prepared. I'm going to read a tweet that I crafted a couple of months ago about how to prepare for your YC interview. Number 1, know your company's product. Explain what you do clearly in under 30 seconds. The first question typically that they ask is, what is your company working on? And you want to make sure that you can explain it clearly for the aforementioned reasons, because if you cannot explain your company clearly, how can you sell it clearly? How can you convince a customer clearly? How will they know what they're buying clearly? So you want to make sure that you have exact answers at the ready. Number 2, show progress. If you can demonstrate growth since applying, like even just a launch or just a little bit of revenue or product improvements, then you're demonstrating that you can move fast. So I think that that's always a green flag for folks. And a lot of people think that traction at a startup means that you have to have like a big, grand old product and whatever. But in reality, it could just be someone Venmoing you for a service that you provide them that is like a vague MVP of the vision that you have for your company. So it doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. You can actually move very quickly and be very scrappy in order to get your MVP off the ground and get some traction. So you may as well try and do that. And you should be doing that regardless of whether or not you're going through the YC process, but it definitely does help, especially when you get to the YC interview, that you have some updates. Number 3, you have strong team dynamics. I was in an MIT business course once where the professor said that the only reason that companies ever fail is team. Basically, if you have a faulty team, then you only have bad outcomes, because if you have a good product and a bad team, then the bad team won't be able to coordinate to figure out how to get the good product off the ground. And if you have a bad product and a bad team, then they might fail or give up or just do any number of things so that the company won't work out. So you want to make sure that you have a strong foundation with a good team and people that you can trust, which is why this co-founder relationship is so important. Number 3, be all in. If you're not quitting your job, don't apply. Lack of commitment and confidence in your own abilities or your own idea will show. If you don't bet on yourself, why would YC? So this is kind of like what I was just saying. You should be doing all of these things that I'm talking about, regardless of whether or not you are going to do YC. You should be moving towards just building a company, because the best YC founders are those that are going to be building the company regardless of whether or not YC is part of that journey. Okay, next, you want to have confidence and no ego in the interview. If you don't know, just say so. And they value honesty over guessing, so you just have to keep moving in the interview, because like I said, it's very fast paced. Take feedback. Ask why and just show that you're willing to learn. Good entrepreneurs are open-minded and can adjust. Next, be resourceful and resilient. Show you'll do whatever it takes. You have to present as a cockroach, willing to survive under tough conditions or with minimal resources, because that's really what a startup is being a cockroach. A YC partner once told me that doing a startup is just a test of grip strength. How long can you hang on when it's hard? Because it's hard a lot of the time. Most of the time, most likely, you will fail. And so, you just want to be able to make sure that you can have that cockroach mode within you and show that you can be resilient. One of my angel investors actually once told me that the reason that he invested in me is because he felt like I would be resilient. Because my parents got divorced, I had a brother pass away, because he felt like I'd be able to make it past that hardship, even as a solo founder. So if you stutter, or if you don't know the answer to a question, you want to make sure that you're used to that and that you can show the resilience to keep going through the interview, because I think that that's kind of a microcosm of greater resilience. And then lastly, have a demo. I think it shows execution. I did not have a demo because we're a physical product, so it was kind of hard to have that demo piece. But that's something that you can consider. Lastly, I wanted to share this quick tidbit that one of my friends was so proud that I got into YC as a solo female founder, that he made a shirt that says Catherine's #1 fan. So shout out to Ivan, who's now doing Cerebral Valley. Quick plug for them. And I think that he made that shirt because he met me maybe 6 months before I got into YC is when we met. And at the time, I didn't even know what a safe was. I knew nothing about fundraising. I barely knew anything about startups. I was wondering why so many startup founders quit their jobs at big tech companies, because it didn't make sense to me why you would leave a big tech job, because that's all that I knew to be good. But look at me now. So shout out to Ivan.